So good evening. It's truly a pleasure to serve as your mayor in the fourth year of my service, and the first year of my first term is completed. So 2020 was quite a year. I think we can all agree about that. We suffered a pandemic. We had forest fires. We had an earthquake, and civil unrest, and in addition to that, a windstorm that was truly remarkable. Before I talk about those things in the state of our city, I do want to mention that the Mill Creek community grieves for the 4 skiers that were tragically killed in an avalanche on Saturday on our doorstep. And so our thoughts and prayers go to the families of those victims, and we're pleased that at least 4 people survived that. And I also want to thank the first responders that helped address that issue. Members of our own Unified Fire Authority responded, as did members of the Canyon Patrol of the Unified Police Department, the State Department of Public Safety helicopter and life flight, and then a group of people that never get enough recognition for what they do, but those are the Salt Lake County Search and Rescue volunteers who come out and risk their own lives to try to save other people. So thank you to all of them. So I want to talk a little bit about our community and the fabric of our community. And a fabric is made up of many threads. And some of those threads in a fabric are stronger, and they help hold the fabric together when it's stressed. Other threads are colorful and give the community its character. And then other threads still add texture and context to our community. Our Mill Creek community is made up of people who form the threads of the fabric of our community. And in the past challenging year of 2020, we have had many individuals who have made contributions across our civic life to keep the fabric of our community together and vibrant. I'm going to mention just a few of them tonight because it's impossible to mention everybody who contributed to help our community throughout the crises and pandemic and the fires and everything else. First among those, I mentioned some of them, but our first responders are police officers who have had a really tough year with civil unrest and dealing with the pandemic and doing their jobs in the midst of a pandemic have really stepped up and served us well, as have our fire department, which was engaged in fighting 2 forest fires in Mill Creek over the summer, and they defended us marvelously with no loss of life and very little, if any, loss of property. We can also be grateful to the healthcare workers throughout our state, and particularly here at our own St. Mark's Hospital, who have sacrificed sometimes their own health to care for us and our loved ones. And our teachers who have tried to teach school, and actually at Mill Creek, I'm proud to say that our kids actually got to attend school, unlike a lot of other places. There were ups and downs with COVID on that, and school closures, and on teaching online and in the classroom. But they're true heroes, and we thank all of them as part of the people that have contributed to the fabric of our community. But there are other volunteers and private citizens who have really gone above and beyond the call with respect to this. And I want to mention some of them. So first of all, Pepa Tafui and his family, his entire family, they have volunteered in Mill Creek for almost every week during 2020 to do a food bank distribution for the Utah Food Bank in our community at 3400 South and 1100 East. And every Saturday, they devote their time to sort food and distribute it to families that pull up in cars. And it's really made a difference in this time when so many people have been out of work and short of food. Another Mill Creek hero is a Boy Scout named Anton Gudick. Anton did his Eagle Scout project in Mill Creek, and I thought it was truly remarkable. He constructed a food pantry at our Title I school, Mill Creek Elementary, where we spend so much of our focus in our Mill Creek Promise program. But that wasn't all. Then he went and conducted a food drive, and he not only collected food, but he raised $8,000 in donations to stock the pantries for the students and their families at Mill Creek Elementary and Moss Elementary in Mill Creek. So thank you, Ton. You're a Mill Creek hero. Nate Gibby has operated Canyon Rim Cares for years, and this year they focused on pandemic relief. They collected clothing, distributed hygiene kits to individuals experiencing homelessness, conducted a food drive, and collected about more than $8,000 for Mill Creek's Internet Essentials program, which was designed to make internet service available to people who couldn't otherwise afford it in a time when kids needed that for school and people needed it for work. I want to honor Russ Booth and Mark Mumford, who are both planning commissioners from Mill Creek who are retiring this year. These gentlemen volunteered countless hours of their time on the planning commission from the very start of our city 4 years ago, and helped us with our general plan and our small area plan for our city center, and evaluated countless planning applications, and helped build our community on the built environment to what we have today. And their service it was terrific, basically, and I'm going to thank both of them. And we have a planning commission seat open, so if you want to volunteer for that, please send me a resume. I want to thank our community councils and community council chairs, but I want to specifically mention David Baird, the chair of the Mount Olympus Community Council. During the forest fire in Neff's Canyon, David was tirelessly updating his neighbors on what was happening. He was doing his own research, communicating with the city, making sure that people understood what was going on with that fire and the potential risk for evacuation. And he did work above and beyond the call. There's one other person I'm going to mention who's a Mill Creek resident. I'm going to do that at the end because I'm going to give Michael Lasko an award as Mill Creek's Volunteer of the Year. But before I do that, I want to talk about some other special people that work for you as residents of Mill Creek, people in our city government. When the windstorm hit, our city employees didn't just sit around and wait around in City Hall. Some of them went home and got their own chainsaws and brought them here and helped people cut up trees and clear our streets in the Mount Air neighborhood and other parts of our city. And I want to thank Brandon Johnson specifically for that. He went above and beyond with respect to his work and getting Mill Creek open again. We hired an emergency manager this year named Andrew Clark. Boy, what a year to hire an emergency manager. And Andrew has dealt with everything that has been thrown at his way this year with grace and aplomb, and has actually been recognized by other jurisdictions, including the Unified Fire Authority, for his exemplary, talented service to our city. It's worth noting that he and another city employee, Aaron Roberts, spent days helping Mill Creek residents clear their neighborhoods of debris and hauling it up to the dump site on Upland Drive and Wasatch Boulevard. And I want to thank them for that work. Another person who deserves mention in our city government is Janice Stratford, who mans the front lines in our information center. She's had to deal with a lot this year. She's had to deal with people wanting to get the COVID vaccine, and she's helped them make appointments to do so when they didn't have internet service or email. And she's dealt with people through the windstorm to get them help. And she directs people on a day-to-day basis about how to get permits and all that. She's an exemplary employee, and I've had a number of compliments about how friendly she is. Even when people are not so friendly to her, she does a great job with that. And two other people I'll mention are Josie Showalter and Alex Wendt, and they work in our economic development department and business licensing. You know, with this pandemic, it's presented a great deal of challenge to Mill Creek residents who lost their employment, and to Mill Creek businesses, particularly personal service businesses that were required to shut down at times and who have suffered a great drop off on their business due to the requirements of social distancing. Josie and Alex kept a scoreboard in their office, and they distributed $1.35 million of CARES funds to Mill Creek businesses to help them survive the pandemic. And that's in addition to the work that they did for them to locate grant money from Salt Lake County, the state of Utah, with respect to other assistance to Mill Creek businesses. And as a result of their efforts, there are Mill Creek businesses open today that wouldn't otherwise be open. So the last sappy thing that I'm doing that's choking me up, I want to recognize a true hero in Mill Creek, Michael Lasko and his family and his wife Trisan and all his family are in city council chambers. Michael Lasko has been a friend of our city since we incorporated or before. I remember seeing him at the pre-incorporation meetings that we had before we incorporated, and always trying to provide assistance as an engineer and counsel to us. When we first started out, Michael and his firm produced maps for Mill Creek that we could use, and he launched a project to help locate our storm sewers and plot some of our infrastructure so we could identify and use that information. But the real hero came out after the windstorm of September 7th. And Mill Creek residents will remember that we experienced 100-mile-per-hour winds that day. You could hardly walk outside without getting blown over. And we lost a lot of great and stately trees in our city. We also had property damage. And like within the first 24 hours after that event happened, I started receiving emails from Michael Lasko. Michael informed me that his neighborhood had activated their emergency response network, and they had identified the people in their community in the Valley View neighborhood who needed additional assistance from the city. They additionally identified where the tree damage was the worst, and they actually provided us with a spreadsheet and a map to show where we could strategically locate waste trailers to be able to maximize their efforts at cleaning up their own neighborhood. And so we accommodated that, but the organization and the thoroughness and the effectiveness of that communication of helping us really helped us help that Valley View neighborhood, which was actually pretty hard hit. It was one of our hardest hit neighborhoods in Mill Creek. And it didn't stop there either, because the city organized a volunteer cleanup where we had hundreds of volunteers hauling waste to a dump site that we arranged at the intersection of Wasatch Boulevard and 38 South, or Upland Drive. And I can tell you, because I personally helped Michael unload a trailer that he obtained attached to his pickup truck. 3 times that I helped you, Michael, at least, and I know that you were working all day, and you and your wife Trisan were working all day to help people clean up their yards, not just their own yard, but everybody's yard. And they didn't stop until it was done. And even after that cleanup that first day, I still got communications about other things that we could do to help clean that storm up, so that Michael and his neighbors in Valley View met that challenge. So Michael, I'm proud of you, and I'm very grateful to you and the service that you and your family have given to our city. And I would like to present you with a recognition award for exemplary volunteer service to Mill Creek. So Michael, would you come forward, please? Thank you. Would you say a few words?
Mayor Silvestrini, Councilman Catton, Jackson, Weepy, and Marchant, thank you for all that you do for our community. We respect you and appreciate your leadership, and our community is benefited, and there's tremendous value by all the things that you do for us. I'm really humbled with this recognition tonight. There are many that the mayor has just mentioned, and others that were not mentioned that do so much for our community. And we have a rich heritage and legacy that was started in the mid-1840s with the mills that were built up and down the Mill Creek with many calloused hands and kind hearts. People worked hard, and that's the spirit of Mill Creek. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that our family moved to Mill Creek and have the opportunity to continue to propagate that wonderful history and legacy that we have here, and one that we can cherish and preserve and continue to help those that come behind after us to be able to experience that rich heritage and legacy. Thank you again, Mayor. We love and appreciate all that you do, and the city staff that you do for us. We will follow your lead into the future.
Thank you, Michael. So as I mentioned, we've had some remarkable accomplishments in spite of the pandemic in Mill Creek. And I'm really proud of the way that our city was able to continue to serve our residents in spite of not being able to meet here at City Hall with the same kind of attendance that we've had in the past. And there were measures that were implemented during the pandemic which limited our ability to even work in our own office. But I'm proud to say that the Mill Creek City offices have stayed open for every single day during the pandemic, during business hours. And we have been able to serve our public and do our jobs. And that is a result of a work of a remarkable team here at City Hall. Our Kurt Hansen, our legislative policy director and facilities manager here, made sure that every Mill Creek employee could work from home or their vehicle. So many of our inspectors and our code enforcement people and engineers have worked from their trucks and have been able to communicate with the city through secure computer communications from either at home or in vehicles, and we haven't skipped a beat. We have actually been just recently reported our business license, and we've shortened the time that it takes to get a business license by a week during the pandemic. And our building permit process likewise has not slowed down. We recently filed a report with the state about our compliance with the laws regarding timely processing building permits, and we're way ahead of schedule on those things too. So we've been able to pivot and to adopt technology and to continue to deliver for the residents of Mill Creek. A number of remarkable things that we did. So the first thing, obviously, the pandemic affected our city, as I mentioned, but we were able to launch a program for business assistance grants and distribute, as I mentioned, $1.35 million of money that was allocated by Congress to Salt Lake County and then to Mill Creek. We also helped 98 of our businesses achieve grants from Salt Lake County with respect to their business programs. So all in all, we've helped probably about 225 Mill Creek businesses. We also helped our residents during this process. Through our Promise program, we secured grants to fund internet services for our residents that were unable to afford it, and rental assistance to Mill Creek residents who were unable to make their rental payments. We continued our work at Mill Creek Elementary and shifted to a virtual learning platform where we could still have our tutors working with Mill Creek kids over Zoom. And we assisted with the food pantry that was set up, as I mentioned, and also have been able to accommodate the population in our community experiencing homelessness by cooperating with homeless agencies in Salt Lake County to open an overflow shelter on 9th East for at least temporarily through April 15. We've been able to do all those things with respect to the human aspect of this pandemic in Mill Creek. Otherwise, we completed a number of significant capital improvement projects in Mill Creek. As I mentioned, in response to the resident who was concerned about projects on the west side, we were able to resurface and put sidewalks and bike lanes on Main Street. We constructed a storm sewer on Central Avenue to alleviate a decades-old flooding problem. We resurfaced 1300 East in sections that range from the Van Winkle Expressway all the way up to almost to 33rd South. We installed improvements at Sunnyvale Park, and Sunnyvale Park sits on the west side of Mill Creek at 700 West and serves our immigrant and refugee community. We installed futsal courts so that kids can play and practice soccer, community garden boxes so that they can grow food because there's a food desert issue, and also improve the lighting out there. We completed the utility work that needs to be done on 39th South to reconstruct it from 2300 East up into I-215. And sorry, Mill Creek residents, but commencing this coming week, you're going to be seeing the reconstruction and construction of sidewalks on 3900 South, which will be completed through this summer. So we kept our promise on that, on raising almost $9 million for that project, and it will be done. We have plans to resurface parts of Highland Drive from 39th to 33rd South this year. We have a number of sidewalk projects on 33rd South and on 7th East. We are under construction right now on the Mount Ayr Streetscape, which is on Highland Drive, just north of Walcott Optical, about a 1,000-foot strip that has been a used car lot for decades in Mill Creek that will become a park strip with a better sidewalk, privacy wall, and some plantings, and yes, lilacs. And we acquired all of the property that we need for Mill Creek Common without a single action for condemnation. That property has been cleared, and we are going to be constructing the Mill Creek Common Park beginning this year. And we're hopeful that, I guess you can't hold anybody to construction schedules, but we're hopeful that we will be opening an ice ribbon in Mill Creek Common by Thanksgiving. The other thing I'm proud of is that during this coming year, we will see the construction of a new fire station. Station 112 on Jupiter Avenue above Wasatch Boulevard will be reconstructed this year, and we will put temporary quarters for the crew at 112. We'll go to a residence that will be operating on 2700 East, just north of 39 South, so that there's still adequate fire protection for Olympus Cove, Parley's Canyon, and the other areas that 112 serves. But we'll have a new earthquake-safe fire station so that our firefighters won't all have to sleep in the common bedroom divided by curtains, male and female firefighters together. They'll have decent quarters for the first time since maybe 1953. The other thing I'm happy to report is that with all these projects and throughout, despite the pandemic, our city is completely financially healthy. When the pandemic hit in drafting our budget for this fiscal year that we're in right now and halfway through, we made some cuts here at City Hall and we tightened our budget. We anticipated that we might lose as much as 20% of our sales tax revenue because of the loss to our businesses during the pandemic. Remarkably, because Mill Creek is fortunate to have 7 grocery stores, an REI, a Walmart, and a Home Depot, and a liquor store, I will add as well. Our sales tax revenues actually, and surprisingly, are 116% of what they were the prior year. So rather than the belt tightening, we actually have it turns out, some excess funds that we are putting into our capital improvements projects. So we're able to transfer about $1.7 million into capital improvement projects for the next year. So you'll see a lot more orange cones in Mill Creek. And the other thing that we were able to do with that extra money is to increase our rainy day fund, or our fund balance in Mill Creek, to almost the maximum allowed under state law. Mill Creek currently sits with a fund balance of 23.9%, and the maximum that we're allowed to have is 25%. So that means that we have almost a quarter of our annual budget in a rainy day fund to be able to meet contingencies in the future. And maybe even the biggest news, because I know that even in the last election campaign, some of our residents were concerned about the debt that Mill Creek carries. Mill Creek carried a $10 million obligation to pay for UPD. It was a revolving loan that we took out every year to basically cash flow UPD. Well, during this time, we have been able to completely retire that debt. So we no longer have a debt obligation to cash flow UPD, and that $10 million debt is completely paid. During this last year, the city has also been able to continue its aggressive efforts with respect to updating our ordinances and addressing the concerns of Mill Creek residents. We have been engaged for the last 2 years in public engagement on the issue of accessory dwelling units, which are a strategy that could be used to make housing more affordable in our city by allowing people to have a mother-in-law apartment in their home. We got to the point of an ordinance that was ready to go out to our community councils and our planning commission. We used the input that we received in several open houses that we were able to hold to take the input that residents wanted to see and implement that into code. We're paused now because the legislature is considering this issue, but as soon as they figure out what they're doing, we'll be in a position to react on that issue. We're also able to learn from some of the development issues that we've experienced in our city and make even further revisions to our commercial code. And we have, we'll be considering tonight for adoption of an urban forestry ordinance to address some of the concerns that Mill Creek residents have expressed about what kind of trees get planted in our public space. I'm proud to announce that we've had an incredible amount of influx of new capital investment in our city. In addition to some of the apartment buildings that people see, we also had the construction of the front climbing gym on the west side of Mill Creek on Main Street. And this year you will see construction of a new medical tower at St. Mark's Hospital, which will probably put about an additional $100 million of value into our taxable value. So Mill Creek is a city on the move, not to steal South Salt Lake's model, but actually, I'm excited to see the capital investment in Mill Creek that we have been experiencing, because it means that we're a vibrant community, and it ultimately will help keep everybody's taxes lower, because it's the taxable value of the city rises. You multiply that by the tax rate, you get how much the city collects. The more taxable value we have, the less we have to increase taxes. So those are all good things and show that Mill Creek is economically healthy. We licensed about 100 new businesses in Mill Creek during this last year, and that's another indication that our city is vibrant and growing and is attractive to people that want to do business here. We've done a number of other big things in economic development. I mentioned that we've been working to become more efficient and shaving the time off that it takes to get a business license, that it takes to get a building permit in Mill Creek, and we've been successful doing that. We have also are on the way to constructing the park that people ask us to build in Mill Creek Common. I mentioned the ice ribbon, but there will be additional features to that park, including a splash pad and a place that we can operate food trucks and some of the other events that Mill Creek residents love. Our business council hit new highs as well. Our business council is a volunteer organization of businesses. There's no dues and there's no rubber chicken lunch each Wednesday, but it's a collaboration of Mill Creek businesses. They've participated in partnering with us in our Mill Creek Promise programs. They've helped donate books to our kids. They provided people to help do public works. They did a cleanup for us at the Jordan River. In addition to promoting their own businesses. And they're a great group of people, and we really welcome their partnership. This year, Mill Creek became a monarch city, and we have been selling Mill Creek, not actually selling, we've been giving away, we've been buying Mill Creek milkweed seeds and giving them away because people are really excited about that. And our city has grown this year. We completed 2 annexations, one in the city center area where we did a boundary adjustment with Salt Lake City, which became final this year. And then we also, at the request of residents in the area north of Van Winkle, between 900 East and 1300 East, entertained an annexation and annexed an area so that those people who live in the Wolf Hollow community and some of the other areas down there can be Mill Creek residents. We started a new community reinvestment area for St. Mark's Hospital and called the MedTech CRA, which will not only provide enhancements to the way St. Mark's Hospital looks, but it will also provide additional funding for our Promise program and put more money in Mill Creek Elementary and help improve their playground. We've done a lot this year, and we have a lot to do coming up, and I'm happy to be the mayor of a city that's making this kind of progress. Couldn't do it without the terrific city council that we have, where we all collaborate and respect each other. And I also couldn't do it without the help of all the community councils in Mill Creek and the other people who volunteer. So thank you very much for making my job a lot easier. Sorry to choke up on all this, but we're on a good path, and I'm proud to be your mayor. Thank you.